That was the moment I literally fell into music. It was a very awe-inspiring moment, and for me it was very personally profound. I felt like I was the lark ascending into this beautiful open landscape. Let me set you the scene. I was 5, 6, very young, playing with my dad's old vinyl record collection. In fact, this is the original record. And I think what I really took away from that moment is how powerful and fragile the arts really are. We're all custodians of this legacy, and we have to remind ourselves that we all play a part in that ecosystem. My life's work has become more and more about helping people, non-arts people, understand the value and the commodity and the experience economy of the arts. I love sharing what I've spent my lifetime learning. So that listening moment is where I try and draw back into every lesson, every performing experience, every engagement I have with people on the street about music. And this is where it all started, a cold place in England. And yes, it's my home, but now firmly planted here, proudly a Sunshine Coast person. Have we got many of us here today? Absolutely. What a glorious place to live. So that childhood was filled, as you can imagine, with what you heard: music, nature, creativity. I'm blessed to be part of a family who values music, arts, creativity. So it was natural for me, it was inevitable for me to fall in love with that aspect of being a human. I saw it actively played out. I participated as part of school projects. And of course, later on in teenage years, you realize how important those extensions of yourself are. I think what I love about classical music so much for me, as opposed to any other music, and I do listen, of course, to all music styles. Let's get that understood first. It all feeds onto each other. What I love most about classical music is the fact that it's the one time as an adult you can have the luxury of being told a story through sound. My advice to anyone here who may be listening to classical music for the first time: is there any newbies here? Have we got any newbies? Cool, we have a few. That's thrilling to see that actually many of you do resonate with the idea that there are listening experiences with classical music. But my advice to newbies would be just let your mind open, let your imagination soar, try and listen without the prejudices, the framework of how is it done. Just notice what you observe about yourself when you listen. I think it's very important that you find your own personal reflective experience when you listen. And look, we all have different reasons for listening. You know, for some, it could be just to relax after a nice, beautiful day at work. It could be driving to work in rush hour traffic. It could be to cook to. And this is the point. For many of you, music might stay as a background noise. But just think a little bit about those musicians who make it absolute center stage. My life has been about putting music, what I love, my passion, what I've been trained to do, into the center stage of wherever I live. And I see that as a great privilege. This is the new craze on the Sunshine Coast. It's called cello yoga. Can be found down at Point Cartwright Drive. Most important thing is you don't do it in yoga slacks. You actually do it in a concert dress. I mean, isn't that the fun thing about being a musician? We actually get to dress up. I figured that out pretty soon. I'm sure the ladies amongst us will understand that aspect. And for me, I think this is a profound quote. And while you read this, just reflect. Is there actually a poignant moment in your life? Has there been a soundtrack to your life? If you had to write down maybe 5 pieces, sounds, songs that really resonate with you, could you actually manage to do that? And there I am, age 12, different haircut. What I love about this picture, for me, it was celebrating a milestone on that journey. This was the point where I said to my mentor at the time, great cello teacher, I want to be a musician. You have no idea how terrifying that is to say. And it's even more and more terrifying for musicians of this generation. It is something I struggle with as a teacher and as an educator constantly in my daily life. I hear those conversations with parents. What's the point? There is no job. You don't go into life to have a job. You go in to find your passion. And this is where it started for me. We were celebrating a milestone because I was accepted into a specialist music school in London, and I was able to go for 5 years, committing every single Saturday to a 3-hour train trip there and back to access, hence the accessibility point of my talk. It is so important that we nurture these dreams early, and it does take over 15 years on average to actually create a professional musician that can go into the trade. Yet, ironically, the salaries never reflect the kind of training that we have. So music for me is where I realized that a community can be with whoever you're playing with. And then the trajectory was set. So at the age of 26, I found myself in the Hong Kong Philharmonic Orchestra, surrounded by incredible, world-talented, passionate musicians. Some fantastic opportunities for me to really see the world. And it was at this particular moment for me, playing Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. I don't know if any of you know it. Ode to Joy erupts. The whole symphony orchestra is belting. The choir is singing at the top of their lungs. At that particular moment, it was so overwhelmingly clear to me that I didn't feel anything at all. I didn't feel the lark ascending moment that I thought I would feel. I looked around, and with horror, I realized that I looked out to the sea of audience like I am today, and I'm actually seeking, do I know anyone? Do I know anyone? But in Hong Kong, I looked out and I didn't see a face I recognized. And for a musician, there's a point where why we do, what we love about doing is we want to connect. We are connectors. We love telling our stories, and we really love that idea that you actually might want to share it with us, go on a journey. So that evening, I signed my resignation letter with no job to go to, and my husband is always very ever patient and very understanding, said, it's okay, let's try this. Sunshine Coast boys, so we came to the Sunshine Coast, of course. And it was a beautiful thing to transition with my family, my young family, into living in such an amazing space. And to be honest, I haven't regretted it at all. And the question I had, and really have had for the last 10 years of making that transition to living in a very small hinterland community, is can I be the change I want to see in the classical music industry? And I'm very privileged to do the kind of work I do, and I really understand how exciting it must be for someone to see my kind of life where I jump on a plane or I teach a student who's actually wanting to know what I've got to teach. But it's not always like that. And dreaming big is when I really understood what it's all about. This particular project was in many ways my apprenticeship into finding my new way with music and reimagining classical music. This project was called Udlo Dreaming. Can you see the juxtaposition between me dressed in black with a large orchestra, with no instruments incidentally, and then here we have a community project which is very much about revitalizing spaces. So there are 3 local artists in Udlo who are asked to animate their communities through their arts practices. And I was one of those lucky people to have an 18-month community project grant to actually kind of really generate interest and enthusiasm with our work. And that's exactly my objective. I want to help people within the communities to ignite that passion for making music, listening to music, creating music, composing music, attending music, going to live performance. That's really the nature of the whole show. So Udlo Dreaming, when you heard Lyndon Davis's didgeridoo blend with the sounds of the cello and a community choir of over 100 voices gleaned from that small area, that was when I had my answers. That was when I felt like I was the lark ascending. And I believe that if we're going to have a future with classical music industry, particularly at the moment, we really need to be very smart and very clever with how we do it. I want to build it from the grassroots up. This is where we get our enthusiasm. This is where we get the ignition, the spark for what we do. So I'm remodeling, in many ways, in my mind, my version of what makes music exciting. Dreaming big, it's a very important thing, I think, for anybody to do. We need to envision ourselves in a different place. And when I started Dreaming Big Project, I had no idea if anybody even wanted to come to concerts. It was the complete gamble, and it was a risk that I'm still doing at the moment. It's overwhelming to see how many people have jumped on board this idea. And I think the Sunshine Coast in particular is coming to the point where there is a rub. We're getting to a cultural rub where people really want to attend stuff, go to stuff, and I'm really excited to be part of that. What's thrilling for me about this statistic is 85% of people are new to music. That's all about building that new audience. 140 guest musicians performing. Wow, even I go, wow, really? That's amazing, okay. I really find this very, very exciting to see because it's the community engagement, again. Professional music teachers involved. And it's all in a small hall. It's a tiny hall. Isn't that exciting? Look, 3 world premieres, 8 Australian premieres. That's, again, really thrilling to see that because I believe that classical music needs to keep stretching out. We need to keep innovating. We need to find people who want to write music for the future. Kids who want to play. Students who want to find a career in music. And I think these little kind of quotes are just giving you a bit of an idea of how much I've dreamed big and spent with a huge, beautiful tribe of people investing, revitalizing community through the arts. And I think what a better time to do it than now, where the world is in such a bit of a disarray, let's face it. I think the arts can really create a lot of social change. And I love this picture because it's me passing on the spark. We have to have another generation who are enthused, who want to continue, who want to keep growing. So, to finish my presentation, I'd love to play for you. And thank you. And let me introduce you to my cello. She's been a kind of trusted friend for many years. This is Millie. She was made in the millennium. Say hi. Always should name your instruments, people. They have a character of their own. While you listen to this piece, I'm going to play you a beautiful piece that, for me, allows me to feel as close to flying as I physically can. This is the Bach Prelude in G major. When you listen to this, just use this moment to reflect. Bach wrote this with a quill pen, manuscript paper, and an instrument and a bow. That's it. To me, this is pure and utter innovation. And what's really exciting to play this for you is I want you to feel that you have this moment just to reflect a little bit on your own life. And think, if there was a dream for you, and a dream that was particularly in your community, what would it look like?